I spent nearly 2 years building an advanced financial AI system capable of detecting fraud before it even happened. NovaQuant seemed like the perfect place to bring it to life, fast-growing, well-funded, and driven by innovation. But what I didn't realize was that CEO Richard Hale had a very different plan. Wait until my system was fully operational, then take it for himself. My name is Ethan Carter, and until yesterday I was the lead AI engineer at NovaQuant. I walked away from a secure, high-paying position in San Francisco to build something revolutionary, not knowing I was building it for someone else to steal. The first time I saw the NovaQuant office, I thought I had made the best decision of my life. It sat high above Manhattan, wrapped in glass and ambition, the kind of place where billion-dollar ideas were whispered over espresso and coded into existence before sunrise. Just weeks earlier, I had been sitting comfortably in a quiet office in San Francisco. Predictable hours, generous salary, and a future that was safe, but forgettable. NovaQuant was the opposite of safe. High risk, high reward, Richard Hale had said during my final interview, leaning back in his chair with that confident half smile. "We're not here to compete, Ethan. We're here to dominate." That was all it took. I resigned from my job the next morning. Now, standing in the lobby with a fresh ID badge clipped to my jacket, I felt something I hadn't felt in years. Anticipation. The kind that made your chest tighten and your mind race with possibilities. "First day?" the receptionist asked with a knowing smile. "Is it that obvious?" "Only the ones who look excited," she replied. I smiled back, but part of me knew. This wasn't just excitement. It was belief. Later that evening, after the whirlwind of introductions, system access setups, and a surprisingly intense onboarding session, I collapsed into my small New York apartment. The city hummed outside my window, louder and faster than anything back in California. My phone buzzed. Lily. I answered immediately. "Hey, counselor." "Don't call me that yet," she laughed. "I'm still job hunting, remember?" Lily Carter, my younger sister, freshly graduated from law school, armed with ambition and a mountain of student debt. If I was chasing innovation, she was chasing justice. "How was your first day?" she asked. "Intense," I said, running a hand through my hair. "But this place? It's different. They actually want to build something big." "That's what you said about your last job." "Yeah, but this time I mean it." She paused, then softened. "I'm proud of you, you know. Not many people would walk away from something that stable." I leaned back, staring at the ceiling. "Stability isn't the same as purpose." "Spoken like someone who just moved to New York," she teased. We both laughed. After a moment, I added, "Hey, once things take off here, they're going to need legal structure, contracts, compliance, all of it. When that happens, I'll make sure you're first in line." "Are you serious?" "Always." There was a silence on the other end, the kind filled with gratitude neither of us needed to say out loud. "Deal," she said finally. "But don't forget me when you become some big-shot tech genius." "Never," I replied. What I didn't tell her was how much I needed this to work, not just for me, but for both of us. As the call ended, I opened my laptop again, unable to resist. Lines of code flickered across the screen as I began sketching the foundation of what would become Aegis Core. At that moment, everything felt aligned. The opportunity, the timing, the people. I had no idea that the very place I believed would elevate my future was already setting the stage to take it away. By my second week at NovaQuant, I had already stopped noticing the time. The office lights blurred into late nights, and the city outside became nothing more than a distant glow beyond the glass walls. I had claimed a corner desk, surrounded by 3 monitors filled with streaming financial data, predictive models, and the early framework of what I now called Aegis Core. This wasn't just another fraud detection system. It was something more, something smarter. I wasn't trying to catch fraud after it happened. I was trying to predict it before it even existed. "Still here?" I turned to see Ryan Brooks, one of the back-end engineers. He was probably in his early 30s, tall but slightly hunched like his spine had adapted to years of coding. His messy brown hair and tired eyes gave him a permanently worn-out look, but there was always a hint of sarcasm in his voice. "You planning to sleep here or what?" he added, walking over. "Only until this works," I said, barely looking away from my screen. He chuckled. "Yeah, you're one of those." "One of what?" "The kind that thinks they're about to change everything." I didn't respond, because the truth was, I did. Across the room, I noticed Emily Chen approaching. You couldn't really miss her. She moved with a kind of quiet precision, always composed. Late 20s, slim, always dressed in clean, neutral tones. She looked more like someone who belonged in a boardroom than a startup floor. She stopped at my desk, her eyes scanning my screen. "I reviewed your proposal," she said. Her voice was calm, controlled. "If Aegis Core performs the way you claim, this could redefine NovaQuant." "It will," I replied without hesitation. She studied me for a moment, like she was trying to decide whether I was confident or reckless. "Just don't rush it," she said finally. "Systems that try to predict behavior tend to fail in ways you don't expect." There was something in her tone, something personal, like she had seen it happen before. I nodded, but in my mind, I was already 10 steps ahead. That night, I stayed long after everyone else left. Lines of code filled my screen as I refined models, trained simulations, and fed the system more data. The deeper I went, the clearer it became. Aegis Core wasn't just working, it was learning. Across the country, Lily was building something of her own. She called me later that night, her face appearing on my screen, slightly tired but still determined. "I started my internship today," she said. "At the small firm you mentioned?" "Yeah, Reeves and Cole." She smiled faintly. "Not exactly glamorous, but they deal with real cases." "Sounds like your kind of place." She laughed. "Maybe." Then her expression shifted. "Actually, we reviewed something interesting today. Intellectual property clauses in employment contracts." I leaned back slightly. "Let me guess. Long, boring, and full of legal traps?" "Exactly," she said. "Some of them basically say anything you build while working for the company belongs entirely to them, even if the idea started before you joined." I shrugged. "That's standard, isn't it?" "Not always," she replied, "and not always fair." For a moment I didn't say anything, then I smiled it off. "Relax. I'm not building this for them, I'm building it with them." She looked like she wanted to argue, but instead she just nodded. "Just make sure you actually read your contract, okay?" "Yeah," I said, "I will." But after we hung up, I didn't. I went straight back to my code. Because in my mind, the real challenge wasn't paperwork. It was building something powerful enough that none of that would matter. And as Aegis Core continued to evolve, quietly, intelligently, I couldn't shake the feeling that I was getting closer to something big. I just didn't realize what I was overlooking might matter just as much as what I was building.
The first time Aegis Core caught something I didn't explicitly program it to detect, I knew everything had changed. It was close to midnight. The office was nearly empty. The usual hum of conversations replaced by the quiet rhythm of servers and distant traffic. I was running another simulation. Synthetic transaction data designed to mimic real-world financial behavior. At first, everything looked normal. Then a pattern emerged. Subtle, almost invisible. A sequence of transactions that individually appeared legitimate, but when connected, formed a structure that resembled layered fraud. I hadn't written any rule for that exact pattern. Aegis Core had found it on its own. I leaned forward, heart pounding slightly. No way. Talking to yourself now? I turned to see Ryan again, holding a cup of coffee like it was the only thing keeping him alive. "Look at this," I said, pulling up the visual model. He squinted at the screen. "That wasn't in the training set, was it?" "No," I said quietly. "It built the connection itself." Ryan let out a low whistle. "Okay, that's actually scary," It's not scary, I said, unable to hide a grin. It's exactly what it's supposed to do. But even as I said it, I knew this was bigger than I had planned. The next morning, I presented the results to Emily. She stood beside me, arms crossed, eyes locked on the data as I walked her through the detection process. It's not just reacting anymore, I explained. It's anticipating. It's forming predictive models beyond its initial parameters. Emily didn't speak immediately. Then she asked, "Can you control it?" The question caught me off guard. "Yes," I said, though not as confidently as before. She nodded slowly. "Good, because if you can't, someone else will try to." There it was again, that underlying tension in her voice, like she had seen ambition spiral out of control before. Still, when she approved moving forward to a full internal test, I knew I had crossed a major milestone. Aegis Core wasn't just a concept anymore. It worked. That night, my phone buzzed again. Lily. She looked more serious than usual when I answered. "I think I just worked on my first real case," she said. "That's good, right?" "Depends," she replied. "It's about a startup founder claiming his partner stole his idea." I sat up slightly. "That happens more than people think." "Yeah," she said. "And you know what's worse? The contract he signed basically lets it happen." She turned her camera slightly, showing a document filled with highlighted sections. Clauses that transfer ownership, vague language about company resources. It's all legal, but it's also exploitable. I felt a small knot form in my stomach. "Lily." "I'm serious, Ethan," she cut in. "You need to read your contract. Carefully." I exhaled, glancing back at my screen, where Aegis Core continued processing data flawlessly. "I will," I said. But even as the words left my mouth, my focus drifted back to the system. Because right now, nothing felt more important than what I had just built. And maybe that was the problem.
I knew something was wrong the moment I walked into the conference room. The air felt staged. Richard Hale was already seated at the head of the table, perfectly composed as always. Mid-40s, sharp jawline, tailored suit. He carried himself like a man who had never lost control of a situation in his life. Beside him sat someone I hadn't seen before. "Ethan, have a seat," Richard said, his tone calm, almost rehearsed. I nodded slowly and sat down, placing my laptop in front of me. "This is Margaret Collins," he continued, "head of legal." She gave me a brief nod. Early 50s, silver-streaked hair pulled into a tight bun, thin-framed glasses resting low on her nose. Her posture was rigid, her expression unreadable. The kind of person who didn't waste words and didn't make mistakes. That's when I felt it. This wasn't a meeting, it was a decision. "Before we proceed with Aegis Core," Margaret said, sliding a document toward me, "we need to clarify ownership." I didn't touch the paper. "Ownership?" I repeated. Richard leaned forward slightly, his eyes locking onto mine. "Everything developed at NovaQuant belongs to NovaQuant, Ethan. That includes Aegis Core." I felt my chest tighten. "I brought this idea with me, the foundation." "The idea," Margaret interrupted smoothly, "is not the same as the implementation. The system was built here, on company time, with company resources." Her voice was calm, precise, and final. Richard continued, "The board is very pleased with your work. You'll be compensated accordingly." "Compensated?" I echoed. "A one-time bonus," he said, generous considering. It hit me then. They weren't negotiating, they were taking it. "And after that?" I asked, though I already knew the answer. Margaret folded her hands. "Your position will be terminated effective immediately." Silence. For a moment I just sat there trying to process how quickly everything had shifted. Weeks of trust, months of work, gone in a sentence. Then something else surfaced, something I had ignored before. Late nights, server access logs, Richard appearing in the system at hours he shouldn't have been. I looked up slowly. You've accessed my development environment. It wasn't a question. Richard didn't deny it. We had to ensure progress, he said calmly. I let out a quiet breath. So Lily was right. I should have read the contract. Later that night I called her. She answered immediately. Ethan, what happened? They're taking it, I said. All of it. There was a pause, then I heard papers shifting on her end. I knew it, she said quietly. I found the clause. It's worse than I thought. What do you mean? It's written in a way that gives them full ownership of anything developed during your employment, regardless of prior concept. It's aggressive, but legally enforceable. I closed my eyes. I'm already working on it, she continued. I'll gather everything, contracts, communications, timestamps. If they crossed any line, we'll find it. For the first time that day, I felt something other than anger. Support. Thanks, Lily. Don't thank me yet, she said. Just don't sign anything else. When the call ended, I sat alone in the dark. They thought they had won. They thought I had built something they could simply take. But as I replayed everything, the access logs, the timing, the patterns, I realized something else. I hadn't been as blind as they thought, and maybe they hadn't been as careful as they believed.
I didn't panic after they fired me. That was the part they didn't expect. Instead, I went home, sat in the dark, and opened my laptop. Not to access NovaQuant's servers, because I couldn't anymore, but to review something far more important. My own preparations. 6 months ago, something had felt off. Subtle, but enough. Late-night access logs. Unusual authentication patterns. Someone with executive privileges quietly entering my development environment. Richard. I couldn't prove it back then, so I did what I always did when faced with uncertainty. I built a system to observe it. Aegis Core wasn't just designed to detect external fraud. I had quietly extended its architecture. I taught it to recognize internal anomalies, unauthorized access, irregular data extraction, behavioral inconsistencies inside the system itself. Not as a weapon, as a safeguard. And now, that safeguard was about to matter. The next morning, Lily called me before I even had time to think. I've started organizing everything, she said, her voice sharper than I'd ever heard it. No hesitation? None, she replied. This isn't just a contract issue anymore. This is about intent. I could hear papers moving, keyboards clicking in the background. Walk me through exactly what you have, she continued. So I did. I explained the logs, the anomalies, the embedded monitoring protocols inside Aegis Core. There was a pause. Then she said, "Good. That's very good." I blinked. "You sound excited." "I am," she admitted, "because this changes things. If your system has been logging unauthorized behavior, that's evidence. Real evidence." I leaned forward. "And it's admissible?" "If we handle it correctly," she said. "From now on, you don't touch anything directly. No unauthorized access, no remote interference. Everything has to remain clean." Her tone had changed, less uncertain, more decisive. She wasn't just learning anymore, she was stepping into it. "I'll document everything on my end," she continued. "Timeline, contract analysis, potential violations. You focus on explaining how your system works, clearly, technically, and defensibly." I nodded, even though she couldn't see me. "Tech and law," I said. "Guess we finally found our partnership." She smiled faintly. "Took us long enough." Later that day, I received a message I didn't expect. "Emily. We need to talk." We met at a quiet cafe a few blocks from the office. She looked different outside NovaQuant. Less rigid, but still controlled. "You knew, didn't you?" she asked, sitting across from me. Knew what? That they were going to push you out. I hesitated. I suspected. She studied me for a moment. Then why didn't you stop it? I met her gaze. Because I didn't need to. That caught her off guard. For what it's worth, she said quietly, I didn't agree with what they did. I believed her. Emily wasn't the type to lie, not about something like this. They think they have control now, she added, but they don't fully understand what you built. I leaned back slightly. No, I said, they really don't. That night, for the first time since everything happened, I felt something close to calm. Not because I had won, but because I wasn't powerless. Aegis Core was still out there, still running, still watching. And if it had learned anything from me, it was how to recognize a threat, even when that threat came from the inside.
I didn't need access to NovaQuant's system to know when Aegis Core had started turning. I felt it. Patterns don't just exist in data, they exist in behavior. And Richard Hale was moving too fast. 3 days after I was fired, NovaQuant announced an internal, pre-launch validation of Aegis Core. That meant one thing. They were pushing the system forward, without fully understanding it. That night my phone buzzed, unknown number. I hesitated, then answered. Ethan? A low voice said. Who is this? It's Ryan. I sat up immediately. Ryan? Why are you calling from a private number? Because I don't want this traced, he replied. His voice was tense, nothing like his usual sarcastic tone. Something was wrong. What's happening? I asked. There was a pause, then, the system, it's flagging internal transactions. My grip tightened on the phone. Be specific. It started small, Ryan said. Unusual fund routing, internal transfers between shell accounts. At first we thought it was noise. I closed my eyes. But it's escalating, he continued. The system is mapping relationships, executives, accounts, hidden layers. Ethan, it's pointing upward. Richard? I asked quietly. Ryan didn't answer directly. That's not even the worst part, he said. It's generating reports, detailed ones, logs, timestamps, behavioral patterns, everything. I exhaled slowly. Aegis Core wasn't malfunctioning. It was doing exactly what I designed it to do. Detect threats. All threats. Listen, Ryan added. They're trying to suppress it, override outputs, restrict access. But the more they interfere, the more aggressive the system becomes. A faint smile crossed my face. Adaptive response, of course. Ryan, I said, you need to get out of there. I know, he muttered. But before I do, there's something else. The next morning Lily called me. I found someone, she said. Who? A former NovaQuant employee. His name is Marcus Dale. She paused, then continued. He used to work in financial operations, left 6 months ago. Why? Officially? Personal reasons. Unofficially? She hesitated. He suspected internal manipulation. Later that day I met Marcus in person. He was in his late 30s, average height, slightly unshaven, wearing a worn-out jacket that looked like it hadn't been replaced in years. His eyes, though, sharp, restless. The kind of person who had seen something he couldn't forget. You built the system, right? He asked, studying me carefully. I did. He nodded slowly. Then you should know. What it's finding isn't new. My stomach tightened. Richard's been moving money for months, Marcus continued. Layered transactions, hidden accounts, smart enough to avoid audits, until now. Until Aegis Core, I said. Yeah, he replied. Your system just connected the dots. That evening Lily sent me a message. I've contacted a journalist, just in case. Just in case? I replied. Her answer came quickly. If they try to bury this, we won't let them. The journalist's name was Sophie Turner, early 30s, investigative reporter, known for exposing corporate scandals. Lily described her as relentless, the kind of person who didn't stop once she had a lead. Pressure was building, inside the system, inside the company. And now, outside of it too. For the first time, I realized this wasn't just about me anymore. It wasn't just about ownership. It was about exposure, about truth. Aegis Core had done what I created it to do. It found the threat. And this time, the threat was at the top.
When the message came, it wasn't a request. It was a summons. Richard wants to see you, tonight. No signature, no explanation, just an address. Nova Quant headquarters. I stared at the message for a long moment before forwarding it to Lily. Her reply came instantly. I'm coming with you. We arrived just after 9 p.m. The building felt different at night, quieter, colder, like the illusion had worn off. Lily walked beside me, confident and composed. She looked nothing like the uncertain graduate from weeks ago. Her posture was straight, her expression focused, her dark blazer sharp and professional. She had become exactly what this moment required. As we entered the conference room, Richard Hale was already there. But he wasn't alone. Next to him sat Victor Lang, a senior partner from an external law firm. Late 50s, tall, with silver hair and a perfectly tailored suit. He had the kind of presence that filled a room without effort. His eyes were calm but calculating, the kind of lawyer who didn't lose. Ethan, Richard said, his voice controlled but tighter than usual. I didn't expect you to bring counsel. I didn't expect to need one, I replied evenly. Lily stepped forward. Lily Carter, legal representative. Victor gave a slight nod, studying her with interest. We sat. For a moment, no one spoke. Then Richard broke the silence. We have a situation. I leaned back. You mean the system working exactly as designed? His jaw tightened. Victor intervened smoothly. Let's keep this productive. We're aware of the irregularities Aegis Core has identified. Irregularities? Lily repeated. You mean documented internal financial manipulation? She slid a folder across the table. Inside, timelines, logs, transaction mappings, everything Aegis Core had uncovered, carefully organized and legally framed. Victor opened it, scanning quickly. For the first time, I saw something shift in his expression. Concern. These documents, he said slowly, if validated, could be problematic. Not just problematic, Lily said calmly. Actionable. Richard exhaled sharply. What do you want? There it was. No denial, no argument, just reality. I leaned forward, meeting his gaze. Recognition, I said, as the creator of Aegis Core. He said nothing. 50% ownership of all related intellectual property, I continued. Full technical authority over the system, and a formal role, co-founder, chief technology officer. Lily added, along with financial compensation for wrongful termination and attempted intellectual appropriation. Silence filled the room. Victor closed the folder slowly. If this goes public, he said, choosing his words carefully, the reputational damage alone could be catastrophic. Richard's hands tightened slightly on the table. This is extortion, he muttered. No, Lily said evenly. This is negotiation. I held his gaze. You tried to take something that wasn't yours, I said. Now we're deciding what it costs to fix that mistake. The room felt smaller. He knew it. We all did. Finally, Richard leaned back, exhaling. Fine. The word came out like it hurt. Victor nodded once. We'll draft the terms. As we stood to leave, Richard spoke again. You planned this? I paused at the door. No, I said. I prepared for it. Outside, the night air felt different, lighter. For the first time since everything started, we had control again.
The first time I walked back into NovaQuant after the negotiation, everything felt different. Same building, same glass walls, same city stretching endlessly beyond the windows. But this time, I wasn't just an employee. I was part of the foundation. "Welcome back," Ryan said as I stepped onto the engineering floor. He looked exactly the same, slightly tired, coffee in hand, but there was something new in his expression. "Respect. Didn't think you'd pull it off," he added. "Neither did I admitted. Across the room, Emily Chen stood near the main screen, reviewing deployment metrics. When she saw me, she gave a small nod, subtle but meaningful. "I assume things are resolved?" she asked as I approached. "They are," I said, "but we're making changes." Her eyes sharpened slightly. "Good." That was all she said. But for Emily, that meant approval. The transition wasn't easy. Becoming CTO wasn't just about building systems anymore. It was about rebuilding trust. The first thing I did was restructure Aegis Core's access protocols. No single executive, including me, would ever have unchecked control again. Transparency logs, multi-layer authentication, ethical oversight. If the system was powerful enough to detect threats, it needed to be protected from the people using it. Lily officially joined NovaQuant 2 weeks later. I still remember the moment she walked into the office, confident, composed, no hesitation in her steps. She wore a navy blazer, her hair neatly tied back, carrying a folder instead of uncertainty. "Head of legal," Ryan whispered to me. "Your sister moves fast." "She always has," I replied. Lily didn't just take the role, she transformed it. She rewrote contract structures, clarified intellectual property terms, established safeguards that protected both the company and its employees. "Fair doesn't mean weak," she said during one meeting. "It means sustainable." People listened. A month later, we brought in Daniel Reeves as an external advisor, the same mentor who had guided Lily during her internship. In his late 40s, calm and precise, Daniel had a way of simplifying complex legal conflicts into clear decisions. His presence added credibility and stability. "You've built something rare here," he told me during one review session. "Not just technology, alignment." I understood what he meant. For the first time, the system, the leadership, and the people were moving in the same direction. Aegis Core launched publicly 3 months later. It didn't just perform, it redefined expectations. Financial institutions began adopting it rapidly, drawn by its predictive capabilities and its built-in ethical safeguards. What started as a defensive system had become an industry standard, and NovaQuant. It grew faster than any of us anticipated. One evening, long after the office had quieted down, Lily and I stood by the window overlooking the city. "Do you ever think about how close this all came to falling apart?" she asked. "All the time," I said. She smiled slightly. "Good. Means we won't let it happen again." I nodded. Because this time, we hadn't just built something powerful, we had protected it. Together. So now I want to ask you something. If you were in my position, what would you have done? Would you fight back like I did, using every advantage you had to take back what was yours? Or would you walk away, start over, and build something new without the risk? When someone betrays you, do you expose them and demand justice? Or do you stay silent and protect your peace? Is it smarter to trust people and risk losing everything? Or to prepare for the worst, even if it means never fully trusting anyone? And one more question. Was I right to turn the system against the company to protect myself? Or did I cross a line that should never be crossed? I really want to hear your thoughts. Tell me in the comments, what would you choose? And if you enjoy stories like this, stories about power, betrayal, and turning the tables, don't forget to like this video and subscribe to the channel so you don't miss the next one. Because trust me, the next story will be even more intense.